Welcome back, everyone. Senate Education, Tuesday, March 19th, Q45. Senator Watson, thank you so much for joining us. You had a question on the floor, or you didn't have a question on the floor, but you came to some of us to talk about a possible amendment to S284. And Ms. St. James, what I have here, 2.1, draft 2.1, is that the accurate amendment? I know we're going to add some names to it.
Other than names, that is where it stands.
This is where we stand. So if the two of you would take a look at that, the two of you take a look at that, and Ms. Senator Watson, you have a copy?
I do.
Great, thanks. So tell us a little bit about what you're interested in,
Yeah.
and how we can maybe help you.
Oh, sure. Thanks. So first of all, I'm just so glad that you all are doing this. As a current high school science and math teacher, I have implemented many cell phone or iterations of cell phone policies. So I am also grateful that it went to an optional set of guidelines or a model policy. That's a great move. In terms of collecting information about the policies that exist across the state, it just seemed like there was some information that might be useful to gather that was beyond what was called for in the bill. It currently stands at something. I guess this is section 1B1. Information on how many schools have adopted cell phone policies and how they differ from the agency's model policy. And so I figured, as long as we're collecting information on how many, or I should say, how they are different, then that starts to get into some qualitative aspects. It's not just a number anymore. It's like, well, so tell us about that. And so as long as we're investigating, like what is the policy or how is it different, then I think that's an opportunity to look at the effectiveness of that policy. And there's a lot of ways to think about effectiveness and a lot of different perspectives that would go into that measurement. So the language that's here is an attempt to at least qualitatively gather information about that. Even something as simple as from our perspective, like the parents generally like it, or the parents don't like it, or how effective is it to implement. So there's a number of things here. So maybe I'll just read this language. Okay, so it rewrites number 1, but I'll just jump in at the end here. The last from line 8 is where it starts to be really new. And qualitative information regarding the effectiveness of those policies, including A, information regarding student compliance, B, information regarding whether such policies are being enforced, including information on the effort required on the part of educators to ensure student compliance, and C, information regarding parent, student, and educator satisfaction with such policies. And then just through other conversations, partly what we talked about on the floor today, there's the second section, in consultation with the Department of Health, recommendations for further legislative action regarding these policies, and then B, age-appropriate educational opportunities, something we talked about on the floor, regarding media literacy and taking appropriate use of cell phones for electronic devices. So, as someone who has had to enforce them, I know that sometimes they're not. You might have a policy, but they're not enforced well. It can take a lot of effort and be really painful. Where I guess I'll just speak from my own perspective. The policy that my school has right now is not so painful. It's working pretty well.
Okay.
But
Yours is, can you just tell us quickly what yours does?
Our policy, we have every teacher has what I guess we'd call like a shoe tree.
We've seen those.
Yes.
Yeah. And
so every student is required to put them in at the beginning, and some teachers have assigned slots, so the student has not put their cell phone in, and I know that they have one, so you can check to see if they've just not complied, or But they are allowed to have them in the hallways, this is
Yeah,
not a question, they are allowed to have them in the cafeteria. Anyway, so there's been a pendulum on
Yeah.
this and how strict it's been.
So there wasn't, have you used it, Mass, in the classroom, cell phones in teaching, you teach physics?
I teach physics.
Yeah,
I have used cell phones for educational purposes, in the classroom. At this point, with the current cell phone policy that we have right now, we are discouraged as teachers from doing that. We also have a one-to-one laptop policy, so most things that you might want to do with a cell phone, we know the students have laptops, and so they can just be directed to use that instead. So that's what, we try to do, but I have used them in the past, particularly for like surveys, or it's really great. I mean, I teach physics, right? So like study of motion is key, and so being able to take videos
Yeah.
and then analyze the motion in that videos is very helpful. So those are just a couple examples. It has been good, and I can't imagine using them for educational purposes, but I do think there may be other good options. So I think it's great that we're looking at.
So can you sum up what this amendment does? I mean, it looks like it removes part of the bill,
I
right?
would say it
no,
actually is an
it's
addition.
just an addition.
So it expands the amount of data that's being collected.
Right.
Striking out subdivision B one in its entirety.
B1 basically, forgive me if I'm wrong, it basically stops after model policy and guidance on line 8.
Okay.
And so the intention anyway is to keep the language from 1 and add to it and this qualitative information about how well it's working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to get some qualitative
Yeah.
data information. And then so I know Thomas and Ruth and a couple of others are really, and Tanya, or Senator Bihowski, Chittenden, and Hardy are interested in media literacy. Does this just report back on media literacy? What I was hoping to say is educational opportunities, sort of including there could be some other way to use a cell phone, like Senator Watson is talking about with physics. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Beth St. James Office of Legislative Counsel. So the bill itself already provides for the guidance that AOE issues to include use of devices for approved academic purposes.
Okay,
So that's in section 1 of the bill.
okay,
And then the amendment, this is part of the report back law from
Yeah.
AOE.
okay,
So in consultation with the Department of Health, AOE has to report back to you on any further legislative action. So do you want to make this mandatory? Do you want to change what the model policy has to contain or consider, et cetera? And then the real new piece is they have to, again, in consultation with the Department of Health, report back on age-appropriate educational opportunities regarding media literacy. And then forgive me if I misunderstood. I thought the amendment was for an also safe and appropriate use of cell phones and personal electronic devices, based on Senator Bihowski's comments on the floor.
fine,
okay.
yeah. And I've seen amendments in my life, but this is an amendment.
It's something, it's really something.
Any concerns? You like it?
Because of the way what came out of the committee was kind of like, they can do it or
Yeah.
can't. This gives us something.
Would you like to be on the amendment? Would you like your name to be on the amendment? It's gonna be Chittenden, Hardy, Watson, Bihowski, Campion, Watson,
You look,
Gulick, Hashim,
Sure.
The two dozen.
and the 2 Ws,
Yeah.
Williams
nice.
Williams will
and
be,
Weeks. Senator Watson will be the lead sponsor of the amendment, and she'll say a few words on the floor. But Ms. St. James, do we need to look at anything else, or can we vote on this now?
It just won't contain all the names that you just listed off, so if you're comfortable with that changing.
Let's just wait on a vote, just in case anybody,
I'm waiting to hear back from one person that you just listed.
okay,
I've heard back from everyone else.
great, okay.
And you're
Wait,
gonna report.
I can always come around and get everyone, well, your names are on here, for God's sakes, I mean, it's, report it, right? Not gonna change my, but we'll take a vote also.
So I move we, vote it out.
Well, let's wait until we make sure that everybody who wants to be on this amendment
Oh, okay.
agrees with it, and that's all. So we don't vote twice.
Cool.
Senator Watson, thanks a million.
Morgan,
Thank you. Well done.
Appreciate it.
Nothing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, thanks.
Okay, St. James. We have a new draft of 220 amendments that over.
I have it.
Yeah, I just. Okay, yeah,
Let me see.
want to take us off while you,
Oh,
just, yeah. It's gonna get one more amendment.